So for my project, I attached this clip that I was able to obtain at a regional park of a California ground squirrel. I did my project on the agonistic behavior of ground squirrels and how they just tend to be more territorial and aggressive. And here you can see an example of their defense mechanism, which I discuss in my hypothesis further. But you can see a whipping of the tail, the quick looks back and forth, as well as one point they even swipe their paw and are chirping a little, which are all defense mechanisms of the squirrel, playing into the agonistic behavior that I saw while recording and researching them. So, to start off my hypothesis, my first hypothesis under development is based off the agonistic behavior that I've seen in research. My hypothesis is the ground squirrel becomes more aggressive as it ages, while it's relatively passive as a young or still in the litter. This is a common for behavior for most species, I believe. Even humans, you're just naturally more protective and self-aware as you age. But in several studies, it's noted the intensity of aggressive and combative behavior increased drastically from young squirrels to adults, and again from adults to mature adults. So this is related to in the maternal and territorial behavior in ground squirrels by Scott Nunes that I have attached. Secondly, for my hypothesis under evolution, my hypothesis is that the agonistic behaviors are more frequent or heightened by those species of small statures. So I found a reference to this in an article called Aggressiveness Overcomes Body Size by several different authors, but they discuss a study where they put a small or larger native fish in its own waters and added a smaller foreign fish. And over time, these smaller foreign fish was able to scare off or deter or kill altogether the larger fish due to its aggressive nature. So this relates back to, the aggressiveness coming from how they were raised, their environmental or developmental or demographic factors. And all this is discussed in the aggressiveness overcomes body size. So, for my third hypothesis involving causation or mechanism, my hypothesis is that the mechanism would be the squirrel flicking its tail back and forth in order to prepare for a flight or flee when threatened. A squirrel may feel threatened for a variety of reasons, including too close proximity, natural enemies, or members of the same species even approaching but trying to steal their food or shelter. I saw several of these encounters. I was in, as I stated, in regional and public parks, so there weren't any main predators. But I did see several of the squirrels just fighting with each other, just being agonistic, being aggressive. And this is a defense mechanism not only for the California ground squirrel, but for most other species of squirrels as well, as talked about in the Behavior of California Ground Squirrels by Donald Owings. And lastly, my fourth hypothesis is under function. And my hypothesis is that squirrels use tail flicking and chirping as a defense mechanism. So the tail flicking and chirping can alert other squirrels to possible danger, signal to a predator they've been spotted and presence is known, and also to distract a predator or just an enemy that they are in conflict with. This is commonly seen in my personal outings and in several research cases I've looked up, but the ones I'm referencing are ground squirrel tail flag displays by Matthew Barber and Reuben Clark. And hopefully that can give you a little more detail on the function behind them standing on their hind legs and whipping their tail and chirping and chattering at the nearby predators. For my relation back to the COGS books, relate it to my development hypothesis, which just once again was that the squirrel becomes more aggressive as it ages, while it's relatively passive as a young or still in the litter. It's also noted in the maternal and territorial behavior in ground squirrels that I attached by Scott Nunes that those having more maternal care tend to be slightly less aggressive than those are set to fend out on their own. It's also noted that the female levels of aggressiveness change. They are less aggressive when they're pregnant, most likely knowing that they have babies and are not wanting to harm them. And then they're less aggressive after having the babies and also more passive to their children. So this relates back to the cog books when we talked about maternal chapters and just parenting in general.